All right, welcome everyone to the Introduction to the EIR program webinar. You have myself, Vanessa Raponi, and Skylar Browen here to present to you today. Thank you so much. So we're just going to get started. Skylar, you want to?
Sure. So first, a little bit of an introduction. So here's a little behind-the-scenes look of the EIR program. There's Erica Lee Garcia and Becky White, who are both managing the program, and then Vanessa and I are both here for the summer working on getting the logistics sorted out.
Yeah, so all of us work for a company called Engineers of Tomorrow. And EOT is actually a venture affiliated with Engineers Without Borders Canada. The main goal of Engineers of Tomorrow is to partner with engineering companies, professional associations, and educators in order to reach our goal of transforming the engineering profession. We focus on improving diversity, striving for the ability to learn from failure, focus on innovation, and trying to solve the most important problems of the 21st century. Our main focus of how we change engineering in terms of shaping the future is through outreach, youth outreach. And we credit ourselves for doing world-class outreach in order to inspire and instill capacity in others to do the same. And we feel strongly that in order to shape the future of engineering, we have to shape the public's perception. So Engineers of Tomorrow is the behind-the-scenes organizers of the Engineer in Residence program.
So one of the things that Engineers of Tomorrow is really big on is getting engineers to tell their engineering stories in a way that is both engaging, concise, and easy to relate to for children and people who might be considering it as a profession. So Vanessa and I are going to tell our engineering stories quickly. So to start off, my name's Skylar, as Vanessa mentioned earlier, and I am going into my third year of chemical engineering at the University of New Brunswick. My engineering story starts off pretty young, as my dad was a civil engineer growing up. So I always kind of knew that that was an option as a profession. However, the way he described it to me when I would ask him what he did every day for his job was, oh, I map property lines and boundaries, because he does a lot of geomatics work. And sometimes he goes out to a field, I'd see him like stand with a little tripod, and that is literally what I had in my mind of what engineering was, which I didn't really know how diverse the field could be, and therefore I didn't really consider it as an option, like going all the way through high school. Despite loving maths and sciences, I went into kinesiology my first year of university. And it wasn't until I talked to some of my female floor mates who are in engineering about how broad and the impact it can have on society where I decided to switch over into chemical engineering, which is where I am now.
Great. So my engineering story is very different from Skylar's. So I grew up with barely anyone in my family having a university degree, let alone being an engineer. So I had no real direction to engineering or understanding of what engineering was as I was growing up. I just had the influence of my mom encouraging me to pursue sciences and maths in order to, quote unquote, keep my options open and keep my doors open. So as I was going through high school and grade 12 was approaching, I was starting to get a little stressed out because I didn't really want to be a doctor and I didn't really know what my next step was. So one day I was hanging out with a friend of mine who was a year older, and he was studying chemical engineering at University of Toronto. He basically just walked me through a little bit of the culture and the community and what it was to do chemical engineering at U of T. And I was really, really interested, and it sounded like there were a lot of themes of the program that I could see myself in. And just about a week later, I had another conversation with a friend's dad who was involved at Bombardier Aerospace, and he was telling me about engineering in the workforce and what the aerospace industry was all about and where I could fit into that industry. So for me, these two people who took the time to talk to me about the profession on the university and workplace level they really encouraged me to see myself in that place. And that's why I decided to go to McMaster University for materials engineering and later joined the management program, which is equivalent to a first-year MBA. So throughout my university experience, I've fallen deeper and deeper in love with the profession of engineering and really look forward to pursuing my PEng after I graduate in May.
All right, so what is the Engineering Residence Program? It's pretty much the flagship program of the Professional Engineers of Ontario as like the main outreach way. It's volunteer-based, as you know, like people like you, engineers, and the goal is really to inspire students in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math, not necessarily to recruit them, but even just to have the kids have a few positive experiences in STEM to look back on and consider that as a career option because they'll be so impacted and remember it so well.
One of the main objectives of the EIR program is ultimately to promote engineering and STEM. We focus on bringing a role model engineer into the classroom, that is you, and the idea is to engage the students with fun and hands-on activities. Something that is unique to the Engineering Residence Program is this is not just a one-day, once-a-year program. The idea is that the engineer is able to really connect with the students in the classroom because of how frequently they're visiting. They're able to tie into the curriculum as much as possible so the students see how what they're learning is actually applicable to the real world. And something really critical that we strive for is to use inclusive messaging to engage all students. So as Skylar was saying, how her dad was always describing engineering in the same way and focusing on some of the less interesting aspects, it was creating a certain stigma about the profession in Skylar, and that's something that we really want to avoid. So inclusive messaging is really critical.
So yeah, as Vanessa was saying, there is a certain stereotype I kind of pictured in my mind about what the engineering profession looked like. And this slide shows, this is directly a screenshot from when you Google engineering, Google Images. And as you probably know as engineers, this is really not a good representation of engineers. But unfortunately for a lot of students and kids who don't have an engineer role model in their life and don't really know what it is, this is kind of what they picture when they think engineering. And it's very crucial we break this stereotype because we're missing so many people who could be going into engineering who don't even consider it as an option because they don't really know what it is.
So something we like to daydream about is what it would mean to have an engineer, an EIR in every classroom. So right now, if you ask a 12-year-old what a doctor or a lawyer is, they can immediately respond. But you ask them what an engineer is, and they're more likely to be a little confused or give one of those more stereotypical answers. So if an EIR was in every classroom, the words engineer and engineering could be recognized by every student. There would be these strong positive role models. STEM careers would be recognized as the rewarding and cool reality that they are. Technological literacy would be at a higher rate. Gender parity in incoming engineering classes would be an issue of the past. K-12 teachers would be supported and feel confident in teaching STEM. Grassroots relationship building would occur in educational systems. And of course, the PEngs who are volunteering would have fantastic leadership building opportunities.
So just to quickly go over what the EIR and teacher relationship would look like. So we expect that the teachers and EIRs will be able to communicate with each other on a pretty frequent basis, work together to schedule times and dates for either meetings and planning sessions or the sessions themselves. Deciding the order of programming throughout the year and making sure the programming fits in with the curriculum and what they want to be taught. And the idea is that there's an equal relationship between the EIR and the teacher. It's a team, and we find that EIR and teacher pairs that work really well often will stick together for years and years, always requesting the same person again because it works so well. And then just as a side note, the teacher is legally obligated to always be supervising, so you'll never have to feel like you have to teach while being in charge of the entire class.
So now we're going to do an exercise. If everyone looks to this right GoToMeeting panel, there's a chat box. So we're going to be walking through scenarios and encouraging you to type out your answers as we go. So hopefully you've all found your chat box and are comfortable doing that. So first and foremost, problem scenario number 1, communication issues. You can't contact the teacher throughout the year and you don't know what's going on. You're frustrated that you aren't making the impact you expected because you can't even get into the classroom in the first place. What do you do? Skylar, do you ever have communication issues in life?
I do all the time. You know, sometimes I'll email people and it will take weeks for them to respond, if at all. So that doesn't happen often, but it happens. So sometimes what I like to do, if I really need to get in contact with them or they're taking a while, is send them into their email or maybe call them and see what's up. Maybe that's a better way to reach them.
Great. We have some responses coming in. So Stuart suggests actually physically going in person to visit the school. That's a phenomenal idea. Baru says contact the principal. Yes, that is correct. Most of you have been also received the principal's email address. Melissa says, I expect the principal to act as a backup contact. Very correct. Hans Berger says, schedule a meeting with the school, which is great. Yeah, so these are all fantastic ideas. Skylar, do you want to move to the next slide?
Sure.
Parcel notes that they could be really busy and might just need a bit more time.
That's a good answer. So some of the solutions we have are try different mediums, email, phone, and person if possible. Everyone has different ways that they prefer to be in contact or check emails or so on. Then there's also, you can try contacting the principal. They're always looped in on the EIR issues too, so they should know what's going on. And then you can also contact your EIR support team, which is us. We're always here to help as well, and we can try and sort out any kinks in communication. And then most foremost, don't let a bad experience turn you away from the entire program. We do occasionally have times where like teachers drop out or that there's issues that come up, but those are really rare, and for the most part, it's a great program, so don't be hesitant to try again the next year or again in like a few months or with a new contact if that happens.
So our next problem scenario is content needed. So your teacher expects you to have all of the content prepared and found on your own. They were told that they didn't have to help you whatsoever and that you would find lesson plans and activities on your own. Where do you look? And I also feel like we should expand on this a little bit. Feel free to talk about how you feel about this scenario and how you would react as well. We already have some responses flooding in. So Stuart says, first and foremost, the EIR website, searching for engineering activities. Harsel also notes the website. Glad we've been effectively plugging our website to you. It has lots and lots of great resources. Thank you both for pointing that out. Hans Berger says, since this is my first time acting as an EIR, contact the program. That's a great idea. Baruz also says to ask the EIR team and generally search the net. Stuart also agrees, Googling STEM activities. Harsel has provided the Goldilocks website. Yes, Goldilocks is a phenomenal resource, so that's definitely one to note. Carl says, I'm not a trained teacher and I expect to work with the teacher. That is definitely great, Carl, and a good note.
Okay. So here are some suggested solutions we come up with. So yes, start out with our website. Like a lot of you have mentioned, we have so many resources, and even if it's not for a specific grade, most of the activities on there can be modified to suit different grade levels. So you can usually find something pretty easily or modify something to be what you're looking for. And then, yes, Google as well, mentioned several times, there are so many options. And last but not least, contact your EIR support team again, because you'll notice this is a very common theme throughout the presentation. We're here to help.
Just a note on this further. So the idea, the way it was worded in the scenario is that the teacher expected the engineer to do everything. I would say the reality of what will likely happen, it would be great if the teacher came prepared with subject matters they would like to see covered, and the EIR came prepared with a few activities that you find through the website or the general web. And then you work together at that point to try to figure out, okay, how can we alter this slightly, which would go better in what month based on the curriculum, and just kind of brainstorm as a collective. And then in terms of purchasing the materials for the activities, the classroom should already have some stuff like glue and tape and markers, stuff like that. But anything that you need that's in addition to what would already be found in the classroom, all of you have a $300 budget for the year. So try to be thrifty, try to go to dollar stores and stuff like that. But you're allowed to be reimbursed for up to $300, provided you're able to give us the receipts at the end of the year. So I hope that gives some more clarity.
Okay, so here's another situation, disagreement alert. You're running a session on electricity and you want to present a PowerPoint before going into the activity. Your teacher insists that the children won't pay attention and suggests only doing the activity with a brief 2-minute intro. You don't think this is effective. What do you do?
Oh, this is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you think one thing and someone else wants to do the other. It's a tricky one. I can hear people typing away, so we'll just give you a second to think. Harsel says maybe make a presentation and only make it 2 minutes long. That's a very good compromise. Someone else says tell the teacher to trust your judgment. Okay. Melissa says show the teacher what I'm attempting to cover with my PowerPoint and try to find a compromise. Great idea. Stuart says, hopefully not your first presentation with the teacher, so the teacher understands that you are able to get the children engaged. That's great. Hans says, review the PowerPoint with the teacher in advance. Carl says, the teacher has experience, and I found that they are always right. Working together to compromise and use teaching techniques that they can provide is helpful. Baru says, respect the teacher's idea, but discuss it later with the teacher on what the issue is. These are great.
So some suggested solutions we have are have faith in the teacher. They know their students best. Also, remember the time limit. Often you only have like one class, sometimes that's 15 minutes long in front of the students, and you want to make the most impact of that time. And quite often that is through more hands-on activities and presentations. And then, yeah, last but not least, try to come up with a compromise. Obviously, if there's something you really want to do and you think it's going to be really engaging to students, that's a great idea and you should bring that up to your teacher, but the teacher also knows their students. So compromise is great in that situation.
Carl has also noted that teachers understand the limits of their students at that particular age, and that's really, really important. So someone earlier had mentioned, just having the teacher trust your judgment. In terms of how frequently the teachers are interacting with these students, it's more the other way around. The teachers are the ones that are the experts in the room in terms of interacting with the kids, and you're the expert on the material and the engineering content. So when it comes to something like this that is about interactions, their opinions should be understood and respected first and foremost.
Okay, so a little overview of the EIR and student relationship. So to them, you're like a teacher or a mentor. Sometimes you're their first impression of an engineer, and you're the one who's putting a face to the profession. And they're probably going to think of you when they think of engineer if they don't really have any other big engineer role models in their life. But you would be, and then last but not least, a friendly adult they can trust. So yeah, really just having a mentorship role in the classroom and getting kids engaged in engineering and STEM.
So this is problem scenario number 4. You've got a fussy student. You're in the middle of explaining the water cycle when Jacob starts screaming and speaking over you. He stands up and starts making silly faces, distracting everyone in the room. What do you do? Darn Jacob, trying to cause a ruckus.
Yeah, every class has that class clown.
Yeah.
You're probably going to come in contact with one of these situations once at least.
When Becky and I were in Orangeville, we had a couple of these students during our Water for the World experiment. It was a little unfortunate. All right, so we got some answers coming in. Baru says, ask the teacher for help. Great suggestion. Hansberger says, stop the presentation and let the teacher bring the situation under control. Also a great idea. Carl says, I'd let the teacher handle it and then continue as if it didn't happen. I like that. Don't enforce and encourage them more than is already happening. All right, Skylar, I think you're good to...
So some suggested solutions we have are look to the teacher for discipline. They probably have a standard way of dealing with these situations, and they know their students and the best way of calming the class down. And then after the fact, continue as nothing happened. So get the focus back on your room and on your contacts. So Carl pretty much predicted this entire slide.
Yeah. Yeah, great answers to everyone. All right, this is close. This scenario is close to my heart, so we call it girls versus boys. Problem scenario number 5. When they begin building their bridges during a forces and physics session, you overhear Kim exclaiming, "This sucks. This is all boy stuff." In response, Billy says, "That's because girls aren't smart enough to be engineers." What do you do? This would be very tragic if this happened.
Yeah, I don't think it would be as blunt if this did play out in the classroom, but there's definitely the idea that this is boys stuff. That is a very prominent idea when it comes to mechanics and bridge building and those kind of activities that are traditionally associated with males, even though they're fun for everyone.
Yes, definitely. Goes back in terms of those stereotypes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just give you a couple more seconds to type out your responses. All right, Han says, there are many successful female engineers and scientists in the world. Be prepared with some examples. I love that. Carl says, correct politely. Examples, if possible, refuting the position. And again, hopefully the teacher will be able to step in. Great. I love that. Anybody else have any contributions? Just wanted to quickly thank you all for participating so much and making our lives easier. So thank you for giving us your responses. I think we're good, Sky.
Okay, perfect. So some of the solutions we have are speak to Kim and Billy's table specifically and reiterate the fact that anyone can be an engineer and a diversity of skills are important. And then to the entire class a bit later in the afterwards, say just don't point out specific names or call it specific students, but just really reiterate the fact that engineering is for everyone. And that is a very important stereotype this program is really looking to break, and we really just want that message to come across more than anything probably. So that is very important to emphasize.
All right, so those were the 5 scenarios that we came up with, a handful related to the teacher relationship and some related to the student relationship. But now we ask for just free discussion time. So is there something we didn't talk about that you've been curious about? Any questions you have on something related to this webinar so far, or something you've seen come up already? Now's the time to type away and ask us your questions. Do we meet a minimum of once per month? Yes. So that is the goal of the program, is to, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're trying to actually develop a relationship with these students beyond just one presentation. So we encourage a once a month minimum. We have some EIRs that are in retirement that go twice a week to some schools. So it's just a minimum requirement, but and in the event you're ill or something comes up, it's not like you're going to be kicked out of the program if you don't go in 1 month. We feel the once a month mark is an appropriate frequency for the children. That's why we've set that up. So yes, thank you for clarifying that. What if the teacher wants you to present on a subject matter that is really not your strength? Can we bring along another engineer to help with a certain presentation? That is a very interesting question, Melissa. So we actually already had this brought up at the teacher presentation, where they said they had a civil engineer was the person they were matched up with, and they were hoping to only present on forces, even though the teacher had some ideas about electricity and some other things. So I feel like that's kind of aligned with your example. I would say first and foremost, you don't need to be like Einstein in the field in order to answer the kinds of questions you're probably going to get from the students. So try not to feel intimidated if it's not your immediate expert level experience. But if it really would make you feel comfortable to have a friend present, first and foremost, you need to ensure that that person has their vulnerable sector police check, like all of you are required to have in order to work in front of the children. And it needs to be approved by the teacher, as well as you need to let us know at the program if you're going to be doing that. But I would mostly say probably you can just do your best to come up with something that's basic enough.
We have a question from Harsel. Is it usually one class, or do you do different classes? So the program is kind of set up so that it's the same base you have in the classroom every month. And just to create that really good relationship between the students and EIR, we do have a few cases, though, where an EIR might go in more than once a month because they're retired or so on. And in that case, they'll do like multiple classes, and that's just dependent on you and your teacher, or if they have other teachers who want to join in and things like that.
Carl asks, in your experience, when do the schools become responsive again during the summer? So this is extremely, extremely hit and miss, dependent on the individual. I find some teachers stay responsive the whole summer, others are completely offline. So if you've yet to get a response back from your teacher or principal, do not be alarmed. They're just on holidays, and if you're still struggling, some options are if you've hit like September 4th and still haven't heard back from them, I would, at that point, that's when reaching out to the principal, trying to call the school, take that kind of route. And then if you're still not having any luck, get in contact with us and we'll see what we can do. And Melissa, that's really funny. I don't know if it was literally your teacher that made the comment about the civil engineer, but some teacher did make that comment. So I encourage you to do something about forces, and you know, revisit your grade 11 to second year education, and I'm sure you can get creative with it.
Yeah, it says F equals MA below that. Great lesson right there. Perfect.
Skylar, you want to?
Yeah, viewers asked, will will we have access to the presentation material later. So we have a bunch of material posted on our website, and that's both for presentations and activities. Oh, if you're talking about this presentation, then yes, we are recording this webinar and we will send it out to all EIRs. But in the case you're asking for presentations for the students, we also really appreciate if you send them in to us after you do one, if you didn't get it from our website, so we can post it there so everyone can see it.
David asks, do or can we encourage them to enter regional competitions, PEO, Bridge, Skills Ontario, etc.? I would say, why not? Yeah, like if you have if you're aware of some fun competitions that are either local or what have you, yeah, why not encourage them to attend? You're showing them a broad spectrum of ways to get involved. One thing I would say, though, is try to steer away from only telling these opportunities to like the keenest top dogs in the class, and ensure you're telling everyone in the class that these opportunities are available, and encourage everyone. Try not to play favorites with that, I would say.
So Carl asked, what was that other resource site? Goldie Blocks? Yeah, it was something like that. It was posted earlier in this chat. There was a link to it. So if you scroll back, there's a link to Goldie Blocks. And another good resource that I found while searching for some of these activities is the PBS website for kids. They have lists and lists of different STEM activities that can be modified to fit like pretty much any curriculum.
And Goldie Blocks in particular, so that was a female engineer who about 5 or so years ago was getting really frustrated with the types of toys that were available for little girls, and that they were all princesses and cooking and sewing, and she found them like quite ridiculous. So she created this Goldie Blocks concept, which is you follow Goldie, this young girl or princess or something, and she's an engineer, and you get to create, you build with her within the books. So it's like mini Rube Goldberg machines, like a lot of mechanical type stuff, but it's all like pink and girly well-being engineering. So it's a really awesome concept and has definitely blown up over the last few years. So I'm not seeing any more questions, but we have a couple more slides. So if you remember anything, what is the dress code in the classroom? That's a great question. So I would say definitely avoid a full suit or anything too formal. You want to be relatable and comfortable with the children. So, you know, like dress nice, like in lieu of a suit, maybe you'll want to wear like a nice, like a dress shirt and pants instead of like a full suit. So a more casual version of yourself. And maybe even after talking to the teacher, you might realize it's okay to be extra casual in front of the students. So that might be something to clarify with your teacher, but I would definitely say avoid very formal wear because you don't want to come across as intimidating.
Okay, perfect. So don't forget, we have some upcoming events. Oh, okay, we'll get back to a few questions in a minute. But some upcoming webinars we have are the Diverse and Inclusive Messaging happen on August 2nd, and this is really just to break down those barriers and stereotypes that we were talking about a little bit earlier in this presentation and make engineering sound like a really fun and doable career for everyone. And then sharing your engineering story will happen on August 16th. And that is like what Vanessa and I did earlier, where we just kind of told our story in a way that would be concise, engaging, and relatable to the students. And then there's, last but not least, an in-person orientation on September 16th in Toronto. It is not mandatory you attend if you're not in Toronto, but it is highly encouraged for those who are or who can make it. And you'll kind of just be going over everything EIR in a more detailed way than just these webinars. Also, many of the teachers will be attending, so you might have the chance to meet up with your teacher then too.
And for those who are not in Toronto, you can also attend. The whole thing will be streamed live in a webinar version just like this. Melissa, we can answer your question now. So when we do our monthly visit, is it just for one class session, or is the expectation that we spend one full day reaching multiple classes or multiple sessions? So our minimum requirement is once per month in one classroom. And no, it does not need to be a full day. However, if your capabilities are to do a full day or a half day on a monthly basis and you want to visit more than one classroom, just follow up with the teacher and the school, sort out what the plan is, and then please get back to us if you're going to be going above and beyond and reaching multiple folks. Harsel is asking, is there a portal that we can talk to other EIRs? Yes, there is. We have a LinkedIn discussion group. So if you go on LinkedIn and you search Engineer in Residence Program, thank you, Skylar, then you'll see there's already a couple hundred people there. And we often find that EIRs message us before trying to chat with each other, but please feel free to utilize that or any of our social media. And yes, Baruz, we will include the websites to Goldie Blocks and PBS in the email where we send out this presentation.
So if you have any other questions, you can keep asking them. If not, that is the end of our presentation. So if you don't have any questions, feel free to leave. We'll be sticking around to answer any last-minute ones. But thank you all for joining.
And definitely follow our social media. Our Twitter at EOTEWB is definitely our most active. But we also have the EIR program, Engineers of Tomorrow, Engineer Residence Program on Facebook. And then the LinkedIn one is where you can all interact with each other. So please join them. And yeah, if you also just want to email us with any additional questions, please feel free. But yeah, thank you so much for attending. We hope this has been helpful to you and that you feel more prepared for the year. We see some thanks in the comments, so we appreciate that. Yeah, so have a great rest of the day and a great summer, and we hope to see you in one of the webinars soon. Have a great one.